what you both are doing is great and it's important, but it's also important to like look after number one. And as much as, grief can also cause some sort of burnout as well, but despite that's not the only thing you're doing. You have lives, you have, a livelihood as well, different things. But how do you two both sort of kind of give yourself like breathing space mentally to not kind of prevent any burnout from, your day to day and just your personal lives and stuff like that?
It's still a learning, I'll be honest. We learned the hard way and pretty much burnt ourselves out pretty quickly, just taking on too many things and just, channeling everything like into our podcast and our page. Like we gave a lot of ourselves away, and I think we kind of burnt out very quickly from that. So now we have got like strict boundaries in place for ourselves. We have, like weekends off, and just make sure we back to kind of like you were talking about earlier, like how important it is to take a break from grief. Like it's something that we've learned from doing our podcast and speaking to guests. We spoke to a psychologist who told us how important it is to actually let ourselves have some time off from our grief, which we couldn't quite understand at first. We're like, how can you have time off of something that's so all consuming all the time? But I think we understand it now, and how important it is to kind of put our grief aside for a bit and just try and engage in life again and have a bit of fun and do things that bring us joy. And so Sal and I have been really practicing that and just trying to have a break from our grief and the grief work and everything, which I think is so important. It's been a learning.
And like for me, a massive part of like looking after my mental health and like not burning out is like in the evenings, I don't look at my phone. Like 7 p.m, 8 p.m, that's it. It's like put to the side, because I think sometimes, you can scroll on Instagram, you can aimlessly look at your phone, check your emails, and that in itself can be quite mentally draining. So for me, it's like in the evening time, that's when I kind of try and recharge. And some people don't feel drained by their phones, but for me personally, I do find it quite draining. And I think like, you just sometimes like unnecessary scrolling and that can kind of have its impact. So that for me has been like something that really helps me. I'm like, come 7, 8 p.m, that's it. Like, unless it's urgent, like I can deal with it the next day. So I mean, for anyone, if anyone's listening and they're struggling with kind of feeling drained or burnt out, like having a bit of a phone detox in the evenings. I don't know. Do you do that? Is that something you've done or?
You know what? What I did. You have that you have like you can set like a like a timer how long you want to be on it. So this is how bad mine is. So I put like a 15-minute timer, but I'm always ignoring it. So like
you're like snooze. Still scrolling.
Ignoring it. So it's like I need to do that. But I think definitely I agree with the burnout. Because there are times where like it's just I'm just tired of I need some sort of a break. And sometimes, as much as you mean well with the work you're doing, with the podcast, I'm just like I wanted to just be like just release so much content, put things out there, but at the same time I know I mean well, but also need to like, okay, look, take a step back and kind of just rethink, so that because you're no good to anyone if you can't, if you're not 100%, so. And I think like last year we had like kind of like a re-strategy because we kind of had a bit of burnout. We were putting out episodes every week, and then we enjoyed it, but after a while we thought, okay, this is too much. Let's make it fortnightly, and we said, okay, if that gets too much, make it seasonal. And you know what I mean, so just different things, and that's okay. It's not, no one's gonna, especially in this day and age of having to always, wanting to put content and, have a, like, because essentially you're building a brand as well, so it's like you want to be focused on, and I understand that, but also like can't let social media drive you mad, like, especially Instagram, because in this day and age it's all about following and stuff like that. But one thing, and I don't know if what you guys think about this, but one thing I try not to tell myself, focus on your why, You know, so
Mhm.
when you sort of lose focus, remember your why, and secondly, don't be so focused on numbers. And the reason why I say that is because
Mhm.
you know we're still growing, and one thing that I used to be quite I won't say subconscious about is I used to think, okay, I can't contact certain people because they have more numbers than us. But I said, no, forget that, because and that's the reason I said forget that, because you know why you're contacting them. It's not,
Mhm.
you know, and so focus on that. Of course, some people might respond back and say, yeah, I'll be happy to come on. Some might not, that's fine, but don't be so driven by numbers. And I think that again in turn allows me to keep focused on as to what we want to do with this, rather than it being so number
Mm.
driven and, you know, vanity metrics. You know, things it will grow in its own time. Even, you know, like again, it's still growing. But the way I measure it is like last year we didn't have as many followers. It's not about followers, but I know it's
Mm.
growing. I know, and it will grow how it needs to grow. But one thing I don't want is for it to grow and then it loses value. It loses. So I've got to always remember, like, what you're trying to do is add
Mm.
value and focus on that. Or,
Exactly.
Yeah.
that's the
And
only.
I think that's a really wise way to look at it. And like one thing that we always think about is no, it doesn't matter about all of that stuff. It's how are you serving people? Like what that is the driving, and it sounds like it's exactly the same for you guys. Like when it all feels like overwhelming and, you know, a lot, I always try and pare it back to like, okay, well, look, how are we helping people, and just focusing on that, and the rest will kind of, it will be what it will be. And that's what my husband always says to me as well. It's like, it's going to be what it's going to be. Just all you need to do is just focus on how you're helping other people, and as long as that is like your North Star, the rest of it will kind of come as it comes, and it will, you know, it'll happen as it happens. But just and I think that kind of goes back to that point of looking after yourself, right? Because when you're feeling like your best self and you're feeling like, you know, that you're not feeling depleted, then that means you're going to be putting out content that's true to you and true to Ben, and like, and you're feeling like, you know, you're able to like serve others as well, you know what I mean,
Yeah,
rather than just
definitely.
because it is like, I mean, do like weekly podcasts, like it's a lot of work, like it is a lot of work, so you do have to look after yourself. And especially, you know, it's talking about grief as well, and you know that it's not, I mean, it doesn't always have to be a heavy topic, but it is a heavy, you know, it's a lot, isn't it? It's not um a pretty in-depth topic, and a lot of emotions with it.
Definitely. Just quickly, I know, I'm not sure what time. I know you guys were quite pressed for time.
Oh, it's so fine, don't worry. I'm really enjoying this conversation, so just
But just feel free to interrupt at any point when you need to, you know, like when you need to.
yeah.
'Cause I'm not keeping track of time right now. Apologies, but I just remember Imogen saying something about the timing. So yeah, but I won't be too long. But one thing I
It's
was
all
gonna
right.
say as well is one thing that I realized is, especially watching, um you know, I like to do this thing where I feel like it's important to give people their flowers. And when I say that, I don't mean to be dramatic, but I just mean, so especially going through grief, I think it's important to you know, acknowledge, you know, if you appreciate people, say that, and whilst you can, when you can, you know, the reason why I bring it up, because like I honestly appreciate what you and Imogen are doing, especially when watching your content. I can tell it's genuine. Like it's, you know, I don't know how I can tell, but I can tell it's genuine. And that's why I kind of say, you know, when it goes back to what I said earlier about, you know, creating content that's valuable, that also kind of like inspires me. Okay, like, you know what, like focus on value. Don't focus on anything else. And I'll be honest, it is sometimes, it's not easy. It's easier said than done, you know,
Mm.
because I'll be lying if I said there aren't times when I feel a bit, okay, is this really working? Like people really, you know, because it's like, again, it's grief, and it's like, you know, are people like, I don't know how people are, like, you know, like for example, if
Mm.
how can I put it, for example, you give someone, I don't know if it's a bad analogy, but you give someone, like, say, a chocolate bar, yeah, that person, you know, you know how they're gonna eat it, they're gonna enjoy it. So you kind of know how they're enjoying that. But with a podcast on grief, you can't see how people are relating to it. Unless every person that watches it messages you, say, oh, I really enjoy this, then maybe you have an indication as to how how much value you're bringing or projecting out there. But other than that, you don't know because people don't necessarily say, oh, this podcast, I watched this podcast and today I'm much better. You don't know that, but I feel like we are doing that because we had a few messages here and there of people, I appreciate you doing this. So that does give me kind of hope as well. But sometimes I do feel like, like how long can this be sustainable? I think it's just sometimes it's just my overthinking. I know that for sure, but definitely, again, it's
we all do it. We all do it. Like it's such a normal thought to have, like especially working in this space, and you throw so much of your heart and soul out there, and you throw so much into it, and it's a lot. Like podcasting is a lot.
Yeah.
It's
especially when you're like working as well and living life, and it is a lot, like definitely. So you're not alone in feeling like that. It's
funny because sometimes you like, because obviously don't start on the podcast, I've learned a lot about editing, audio editing, video editing, and every time literally I'm like, it's like, I don't know, maybe 2 a.m. 3 a.m. I'm editing the life out of this episode. And I'm like, damn, people need to enjoy this because I put my blood, sweat, and tears into this. But then do that, and maybe like, again, this is what I say, like, if you focus on numbers too much, you're gonna be disheartened. You can do all that. You can edit it to the finer details. Add this, add that, and then nobody watches it, or maybe a few people watch it, and you're like, oh, damn. So people are not really respecting the energy I put into this. But you can't focus on that. Just do it. Just. Thing is, the way I say it is like how my kind of philosophy is, like I said before, forget the numbers, but would you watch this? So if would you watch what you can, what you produce? If you can't watch it, then you're not producing good work. So I kind of go off of that, and I'm like, okay, I need to produce something that I feel is good quality. And even if it's one person watching it, that one person who's watched, at least they can say, oh, you know what, this was of the sun. Because if you just want to focus on numbers, and you do get the numbers eventually, and then but your work isn't really, you can tell you're just driven by just like viral moments, or just trying to get, and I don't want it to be like that. But that's why, like, I'm happy for the slow growth, because I know what I'm trying to do, and it's always add value. So if those things do come, it's not like it's not an accident. It's not like the value's already been there.
Not if they come, when they come.
When
they come.
But I don't feel like I don't feel like I need to like kind of, okay, what can I talk about now to create another viral moment? No, like the value's already been done. I feel like with grief, I don't know what you guys think about this, but it's almost like I feel like it's such a niche, but there's so much within grief like you can to talk about, and that's what we are trying to do with the podcast, is just like have these conversations. Even things like when Sally mentioned about no one speaks about that life admin, no one speaks about that. No one speaks about trying to like, or find out, okay, if your parent had life insurance, how do we kind of activate that? What do we do? Like what what is how do you activate? Well, all these different things, planning a funeral. Of course, no one talks about it because it's not it can be quite morbid, but these are grief is like, these are important things because most of us are going to go through grief, and I'm not saying we should be prepared, but it might be nice to have conversations with people and say, okay, look, how do you want to, when I go, how do you want to, what do you want in place, or what, it's hard. I'll be honest. I'm not saying that. I'm not gonna say I've had those conversations, but I know that the importance of it, and even like things like I mentioned it so many times, like, okay, I used to think life insurance. I'm young. I don't have any kids. I'm not married, so I don't need to worry about that. But no, like you need to start thinking about these things now, like, because that's just the reality we've been thrown into,
And it's wild how niche grief is, yet it's something that everyone is going to go through in their life, and everyone is going to die, as morbid as that sounds again, but like, how is it niche? Like, and I think this is the important thing by what you're doing and what we're doing, is like trying to normalize talking about this stuff, because it happens to everyone and we need to be more prepared, and there need to be more resources that tell it like it is. So yeah, it's just wild how niche it is, even though it's like the one thing in life that's guaranteed.
Yeah,
No,
it's true. It's true.
it's and I think just when you were saying before, like, you know, you put so much effort into sort of making sure that your content is something that you'd be really proud of. And I think that is absolutely the right way to do it. Like Im and I always say, like when we're planning our next season, or like we're working through a guest episode, if we're not jazzed by the conversation or what we're talking about, then our listeners aren't going to be. Like, it has to be true to you, has to be authentic to you. You have to feel like you're getting something from it too, because if you're not, and it doesn't feel right, then your content isn't good. That's not going to shine through in your content. So that's something we're really mindful of. Like, would we want to listen to this? Like, are we adding value? Like, is this going to serve our listeners? Like, is this going to benefit them in some way? That's always sort of like, you know, we have had episodes before where we've kind of reflected and been like, not sure that's like that was one for us. Like, and then we kind of let that influence, like, you know, the next kind of conversation or.
Yeah,
it's
so true. Like, we've found for us what feels really authentic and what we've really enjoyed, like on our platform, is like talking about spirituality and that side of loss, which we thought we were going to alienate our audience when we started talking about that and opening up that conversation, but it didn't at all. And then it was like, you know, just whatever is authentic to you and whatever energizes you when you're talking about it, people are going to feel that through their headphones. You know, people are going to pick up on that and come back for more, because yeah, if you're passionate about something and something is helping you, it's 100% going to help somebody else.
Yeah,
I think.
Definitely. And I think that's why what Sally said earlier about, you know, it being right. And, you know, of course it's good to talk to so many people on grief, but again, you have to feel like, okay, I want to have this conversation. And even though like the time difference is crazy, and I knew this is going to be so early, but I was excited to have the conversation, because, you know, so all those things you forget about whether it's the time difference, and I don't see it as, oh, I've got to wake up early and have a convo. No, but I've got to wake up early and I'm excited to have this. So it's kind of like when you're passionate about what you're doing, it doesn't feel like you know, the whole what's the word, like the whole kind of dread is kind of eliminated, because it's nothing that you want to do, you like doing. So, you know, as opposed to if it's something that, you know, you just have to do, oh, I'm dreading it, let me just get over and done with. And that's probably why I've forgotten about time. But like,
yeah, it's totally not what you mean. It's one of those things, like we always joke, don't we? We're like, oh yeah, grief, it's weirdly energizing. Like, we find, you know, obviously it's like grief and it's like a really heavy topic, and it's not, you know, it's like a exhausting thing, but like we find, and that's the thing, like what you're doing as well, like you're helping so many people, and the content that you're creating and what you guys are doing. Oh, that was a massive snore. Did you hear that one?
He's trying to say wrap up. That's what he's giving that thing.
No, not at all. But like, I think as long as you just stay authentic to you. I think that's a thing, isn't it? Authenticity is when you're creating content, because it is so, you pour so much of yourself into it, and you know, it does take up a lot of time, like editing podcasts and you know, reaching out to guests and do everything that's involved with it. I think as long as it's authentic to you, and you can find some sort of energy through it, and find it energizing in a way, like you're saying, like, you know, you don't feel like you're dreading like conversations and stuff. I think that is something in itself, you know, that you are on the right path. And
also, we need more men in this space.
Yeah. Hello? You guys,
come on, you're representing a whole, like,
yeah,
you're doing it for the blokes, which is so great, because there's not enough men in this space at all. So just have that at the back of your head all the time. You're like, just hugely underrepresented. Like, you need to keep doing this for the guys as well as yourself. Like, it's so important.
No, I appreciate that. As I've heard your dog, Sally, I know your dog has spoken. So on a last note, one thing that I admire is how you both kind of bring your personalities to it, because again, although you are have a direction, a purpose with what you're doing, but also it's like you can also be yourself doing it as well. It's not something that, oh, I've got to put on this groove mask, then I go up. But it's like, no, I'm me. I'm not putting on a mask, and and I think that's very very important, because especially in this day and age of social media, where like I feel it's very very important that you can be yourself in whatever you're doing, because I thought if you can't, then it's almost like, what's the point? And that's something that I know I am being myself. That's something that I always say to myself. If I can't be me doing this, then there's no point. I'm not. I can only. And I think part of that comes from not trying to be like perfect. And I don't know if you guys had this when you first started recording, is I always try to make everything perfect. So like, I don't know,
yeah.
our first episode,
I've got a funny story for you about trying to make everything perfect. When we first started, we basically were like running off a script. We're like, we've got to get this right. We've got to get this good. We've got to say all the things we need to say. So we were like,
it was like the worst.
It was horrific. And Sally's like, oh my God, I keep losing my track. This isn't working. I'm like, okay, what do we do? She's
we were like literally reading off a script. Like,
and then Sally's like, we've got to get rid of the script. I'm like, so nervous to do it. And especially like when you're grieving, brain fog is a real thing. Like my memory was not there. My head was in the clouds. I was like, I'm not going to remember anything to say about my whole experience. So that was interesting.
Didn't we record a whole episode, but we forgot to press record?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, we recorded a whole episode, which like we felt was really good, but we hadn't hit record. So that's also grief brain. But we wanted to get it right. And then it's like, you know what? Let's just sack off the script and talk to each other like we would when we're having a glass of wine together and, just pouring our hearts out. And then we took that approach and we felt like it just felt so much better for us. And I feel like, Sal and I are so different, and like we bring such different qualities to the podcast. And I feel like people appreciate that, like there's different sides to it as well, which, because not everything is going to serve everybody, not everything everyone says everyone's going to agree with, and especially with grief, it's so individual. So yeah, I think it's just we were trying to be we were trying to get it right, but it's just like, just be yourself. And yeah, we just like started having a laugh, and we feel like this is what feels right for us, is like just having a chat and having a laugh and just telling it like it is. And that's the other thing, like humor is so important, I think, when you're grieving, and people can be afraid to make jokes and say the wrong things and all of that stuff. But a lot of the time it's really helpful, and Sal and I have found it to be quite cathartic.
Yeah, that definitely. And I think that's the beauty of it, not wanting to understanding that, look, just be yourself. You're not always gonna get it right, or because I remember when we first started, I was just like, okay, there has to be no background noise whatsoever. Everything has to
no dog snoring.
Listen, just be yourself, because I think that also is quite a skill as well, though, because you're also trying to like provide some sort of value, some form of education, but also doing that whilst being yourself as well. And I feel like with most things, people relate to, of course, the people behind it. That's why even little things like, just kind of get out of your comfort zone. So I remember when we first started, it was just like, okay, put in episodes. And because when we first started recording, we didn't have the YouTube channel. It was just audio. It's audio only. And then we started having the YouTube channel. And then from there we went to, okay, maybe start kind of telling people a bit more about ourselves. So maybe like showing more of our faces now, because yes, this is a brand, and you want to but also just be like, just have fun with it, be a bit more personal, be just like, doesn't have to be so rigid, like, right, I'm only here to talk about grief, but sometimes show people your day, or what it's like, and just little random things, because it's just,
and that's when people get to know you, that's when they sort of form that connection with you, right? So when your listeners kind of see those little snippets of your life and your personality and kind of things that are sort of personal to you, that's when you start to build that sort of, I guess, that rapport. But when it's authentic to you, it's just much more enjoyable to do as well, isn't it? You know, when you kind of let go of like how you think it should be, I think that sort of just makes the whole process a lot easier too.
Yeah, exactly, definitely. But
You guys are doing an amazing job, like, and you should be really proud of yourselves.
Where
and
is Ben?
Yeah, where is Ben, by the way?
Ben? Is he okay? Like, should we call him?
I think I think he got confused with timing. So yes, unfortunately, yes, he couldn't.
It's all good. It's like it is Sunday morning, so like
Still waiting for Ben to join us.
Yeah,
that's fine. I mean, I'm always happy to always bring you guys back on, whereas all of us or vice versa. So that's not a problem. I'm sure we can arrange something again. That's not even a issue.
It's so fine. We're just joking. I'm normally asleep until like midday on a Sunday, so I don't blame him. You know, it's like it is Sunday after all.
Probably had a big night before, did he?
I'm not sure. I think it was definitely the confused timing, but it's all good. You know, I'm sure he would. I'm sure when this comes out, he would appreciate the convo and whatever you said. You know, because he's you know, like through this whole group, he's someone like seems like a brother, that I've met through under like terrible circumstances, but here we are. So, you know, that's one like good thing, you know.
And you got to hold on to those gifts. You've got to, you know, we're not going to say look for the silver lining in the death of your loved one, but there are gifts that can come from pain. And you know, we feel like Sally and I meeting and you and Ben meeting, like they're gifts that have come from it. So yeah, it's so important to hold on to those things as well.
Definitely. I definitely agree with that. You know, that's how I see it, because at times, you know, when you're in your grief bubble, you always think about all the negatives, but sometimes it's good to see like the good things that come from it. You know, so that's one thing I'm appreciative of. Like, again, even if it makes you more appreciative of what you have and people around you. You know, so like I'm definitely would say that Ben is like the I would say bro from another mother, but yeah, I'll call it that. I was gonna say, but no, I appreciate you both coming on, Imogen and Sally. Like I've enjoyed this, and it's one that I've actually wanted to have for a while. So I do thank you guys for agreeing and, you know, sharing your stories, because it's not easy, like given the level of the trauma and just expressing it. So I really want to thank you guys both for
Thanks
thank you for reaching out to us. It's been a great chat, and thank you.
I love what you're doing, and it's been really lovely to talk to you, and keep doing what you're doing as well, because it's really, really important, and you guys are, you know, reaching a lot of people who need it. So
yeah, no, I appreciate that. Just before we go, anything you want to plug, anything you have coming with us with regards to Good Morning, or anything that's grief related, or anything not grief related that you feel like the listeners or viewers should know about?
We have got. Do you want to go, or do you want me to go?
You go.
Okay. Well, we have we set up a private Facebook support group. We just felt like there were a lot of people in our community that wanted to start engaging with one another, and Instagram, it's quite difficult for them to do so. So we set up a Facebook group. So if anyone from your community that needs sort of some extra support or wants to try and connect with other people, like other grieving people, a bit more intimately, we have that Facebook group called Good Morning Grief Community. And we also have our Instagram, where we share a lot of content on there, which is at Good Morning Podcast. Sorry, I've had a bit of a cough for like the last 2 weeks. So at Good Morning Podcast. We also have some grief affirmation cards, which are coming out soon, which is a great gift for yourself if you're grieving, or for somebody else if you're supporting someone and want to just give them something but you don't know what. Affirmation cards are such a nice gift to give. So they'll be coming out shortly. I'm not sure when this episode is going to air, but head over to our website, which is www.goodmorning.com.au, and check it out.
Nice. I know you mentioned the podcast. So I mean, just for those listening, where can people like find? I know you have the podcast page. I don't know if you have personal page, but where can people find generally most of your content?
Head to Instagram, I'd say. So like at
Yeah.
Good Morning Podcast on Instagram. And then just, if you want to click the link in our bio, you can find the podcast, you can find our website, Facebook group, all of it.
All the things.
All the things.
Yeah.
Yes. And I appreciate that. And for those that have been listening and watching, appreciate you guys tuning in. As always, subscribe on Apple Podcast, Spotify. We're also on Amazon Music as well. Of course, the YouTube. So that it means a lot, sharing our content and people just learning more about grief and just normalizing it, because essentially that is the aim. I'm sure it's the aim for you both as well.